Alrighty, so today's video, I want to talk about how trans women, I feel, don't owe you any level of femininity. We don't owe you what you think you might expect a trans woman to act or, look like in public kind of thing. So hi, welcome. We're going to get into it a little bit. If you understand how much stress the trans people have been under in the past year and a half, especially anybody that's been paying attention to anything in social media or following the news, we've been on a shorter fuse on average, it seems. There are individuals that still seem to be like unfazed with a lot that's going on in the world, but I also feel like some people just have unrealistic expectations of like what a trans woman is whenever they see somebody in public and they say, well, I'm a trans woman. And it's just like, you don't fully understand what we've had to go through, what we have to deal with. And like, we're doing our best in our own ways usually, but also like everybody does things a little bit different. There is no staple like cis female how to present yourself kind of thing. Like, there's tomboys, there's goths, there's multiple different little niches, right? And so like whenever somebody identifies as trans, but they also dress a certain way, they have piercings, they have this, the blue hair. Oh my God. It's not what I would do, but it's what others might do, the red hair, the whatever. That's fine. I'm not saying like, hey, that's like wrong to do any sort of path of how you do it kind of thing. I think some people just like to stereotype and lump us into like a certain category and just be like, well, these ones make things this way, or like the hyper woke or the whatever, and everybody has to be about like for how many years of my transition, I was like, if you call me dude, if you call me bro, I don't care. It's not going to faze me. But in recent times, it just seems like so many people think that that's like a way to like get a reaction out of you kind of thing. It's not like something that phases me so much, but I could see somebody like in earlier transition affecting them a bit more kind of thing. I think that whenever somebody, like if someone went to a job and they look feminine, but they're not, hitting like the feminine notes with their voice, they just haven't done vocal training. They just haven't gone through, the practice of like, or maybe that's not something they're even interested in. I think like there's a certain level of judgment that happens to trans women that like, it's just like you have a certain level of expectation based off of like what you've seen from us in adult entertainment, what you've seen from us in AI videos that aren't even real. You've seen like these false reactionary things. We're just guys that are playing make-believe. Literally, no. I say it so often that my testosterone's lower than cisgender females, and the only way I can actually get it up is if I take testosterone to get around cisgender female levels. That's kind of where I'm at, and everybody's on a different, plane of this kind of thing. There's so many different trans girls and so many different stages of transition, and so someone might go for surgeries in the first like year and a half after starting hormones. You can't get surgery prior to that. Nobody's going to approve that. You have to get multiple letters from therapists. We go to therapists. We go to therapy and we talk things out and we talk things through. We have the buzzword empathy for each other. I really don't like this word because of how popular it's become, but it does have a decent meaning, right? And certain level of understanding just to like who we are. And I feel like if more people got more in tune with themselves, there wouldn't be as much name calling, as much like judgment kind of thing. I think largely in the trans community, we are accepting and tolerant of what others are going through because we know that in stages, we've gone through something similar. People have breakdowns, people have bad days, right? But like, it's more common whenever like the world is against you in more recent years, right? That hasn't been how it's always been. And so when I look back at things and how like the less judgmental of people prior to like more recent years, it's like anytime somebody really like went after me or like made a big deal about me being trans or whatever, it hurt. It affected me. It did take a toll, but like I've had the time to go through and have like these experiences and to like work through it and then realize like these people just aren't happy themselves. These people don't like seeing other people succeed in their own ways or reach their own goals. These people expect everyone to be a certain way. People need to be exactly the same. People need to be able to reproduce. That's so important, right? In a world where we have like supply chain issues currently and potentially losing, like, I'm not going to get political. I'm not going to get into all that. But like, if you really want to keep bringing children into this, maybe take care of the people that are currently alive. I made the decision to transition when I did because it's like I knew that I can hardly take care of myself. How can I take care of somebody else? I know that's not maybe the most valid reason to make a decision like that. I also know that I didn't want to end up like my dad, a constant alcoholic. And I didn't want to have to, just end up in that bubble. I just didn't want to end up being like forgotten in a factory and work my life away to only have like a war come out and then the value of the dollar decrease. And then fast forward to like recent times, right? It's like saw the future, but like I don't want to say that because like, I just it's something that I understood could potentially happen, and I made decisions based off that. I made decisions based off of how I felt. And so when I present myself a certain way, it's because I feel that I can present myself that way, kind of thing. If I'm out in public and I'm in guy clothes, or I'm just like in more of like a stealthy kind of look, even to this day, I'll do that. Just because I don't want people bothering me. I don't want people like, hitting on me. I don't want people like, whatever. It's like I don't like to deal with that all the time. It's not something that I like to even, it's not something that I'm shooting for. I just want to be myself. I want to be happy as being myself. I hated body hair. I made decisions based off of like what I wanted done. So as far as procedures that I had, literally it was just like laser hair removal on certain parts of my body, like underarms, on my face kind of thing back in the day. And then more recently I got electrolysis on my face. More recently I got upper facial feminization surgery, but that was a decision that I had made for years. It wasn't something that I had rushed into. It was something that I wanted for myself. It wasn't something to appease everyone else. I understand that part of the decision making was for my own safety. So whenever like it comes down to somebody that's very visibly trans and that they're not even trying to hide that like, hey, I'm trans, it's because they're happy and confident and comfortable with their decisions and who they are. To try to chop somebody down that is confident and comfortable and happy being trans kind of thing, I think is some seriously petty behavior. I understand there's been some arrangement within political everything to like demonize and other a group of people, a marginalized group, and in the hopes to like, weaken women's protection. And even women are falling for this, to talk about these issues and say, oh, well, trans women in the whatever. And it's like, it's not even, it's a non-issue. And now we're seeing like the differences between genders and how this is like playing out. So like, I don't think like that type of behavior leads to anything positive for anybody except for setting people back. And the only reason why you'd want to set people back is because you just want a failing country. Like, you don't want a happy country. You don't want a thriving country kind of thing. For as many people that do identify as trans, right? You have to understand that like this downtick and the whole thing about like trans people not, less people are identifying as trans. I don't think that's remotely true. I think it's less people are publicly announcing, and especially given my comment section of people saying like, hey, I feel like I'm trans, but I don't feel like this is the time to like announce it kind of thing. I think that's like a large part of it, that people still feel a certain way, but they just feel less safe. And so when somebody doesn't put, hyper feminine effort, they don't go out and they're not like, perfect female presenting. It's because multiple reasons. It's literally multiple reasons. Some of it is out of fear. Part of it is for me as well. Given my area, it's like some days it's like, okay, if I know I look good and I know I can just like get through the day, whatever, I will get gendered correctly all day long. There's literally been days that I don't try and I get gendered correctly all day long now since I got surgery. But it's kind of a double-edged sword sometimes because like even still it's like there's times that like I'm just like, did I do this totally for me, or was it partially just for to be able to pass kind of thing, to assist in going on this goalpost kind of thing? Because what it is like you start here, you start guy, right, or you start more androgynous, younger, puberty blockers. And like I know I don't like talk about like trans youth so much, but like puberty blockers would have saved me a lot of stress throughout my life. It probably would have led me to not making a channel on YouTube. It probably would have led me to actually living my life a little bit more. You start here, and the end post is obviously for some of us getting as passing, as presentable, not needing to out ourselves as trans in public, not needing to let other people know that we are trans. For our own safety, for our own sanity, for our own livelihood. If trans women want to say, I'm a woman, and they don't want to say they're a trans woman, I have no problem with that. I'm happy and confident and comfortable being a trans woman. And I like that. I like that little adjective on there. It gives full clarity. I'm not tricking anybody. I can't believe how many people think I'm tricking them or whatever. That like mentality of it. But like at the same time, you have to understand like I've still put in effort when I can. I still put in the effort that I can within reason. As somebody that's like somewhat disabled, has some disabilities, I have limitations to what I can do. Given the injury on the nose, I can't do makeup like I would like. I would love to get into makeup. I'd love to do makeup. I look good when I got like makeup on. I don't do makeup. So this is just, my face, right? But I think it's important to understand that like everybody on this path is at different stages of their journey. And if somebody doesn't want to like identify super femme, they don't have to. Like I feel like they really honestly don't have to. If somebody's off hormones but still wants to present female and wants to identify as trans, I mean there is always like, hey, femboy kind of route to that too. And then it just becomes this other whole, thing. But like it's a spectrum. That's like part of the thing, right? To say like Enos Cantor Freedom is a woman with a full beard kind of thing has been the most ridiculous thing ever. And like I said, it's just softening the protections that women currently have. And I think it's really kind of odd times to continue to see this develop the way it is. But like, as far as like how I feel, as far as how most other trans women feel, we feel girl. We feel, and so when we have more estrogen than any girl you've ever met, and then you want to call us a guy kind of thing, it's just very kind of redundant and weird. It's very cookie cutter. There's a lot of like cookie cutter phrasing out there and like ways to like affect us kind of thing. So I think it really is, and honestly, one of the best pieces of advice that I can give to other trans women is to build up thicker skin, because it does help. There's nothing that anybody on the internet or in public could do to me that hasn't already been done by my own family in ways that are much more hurtful and impactful. And then you learn how to grow off of that. And so I had my own level of training. I've gone through layers of putting up with like a lot of extra for the only reason just being my identity. People assuming things about me. People making up whatever they possibly could and throwing it at the wall to see if they can get a reaction out of me. And I think the most important thing is to just not react to these type of people. I think the most important thing isn't even to educate these people. We're severely outnumbered. There's one of us for every 99 of them. If you educate 10 people, there's still 89 people. I mean, it doesn't add up. It's you have a life to live. It's not your job to educate everyone. And I think it's more important to speak to people in mass like this about your experience than to individually give out this type of information. Give out like why you feel the way you do. You may find a few people that you can talk to and they'll listen. You may find a few people that will give some resistance, but they'll still maybe be understanding by the end. You'll find people that will just say the most hurtful things they possibly can to get a reaction out of you, to belittle you, to make you feel worse about yourself. And if you're happy with yourself, if you feel like you're on the right path, that's what matters at the end, because you can't change that. And I'm speaking as somebody that has been on hormones for 2 years, off for 2 years, back on, because I tried to make some sort of anything else work because of how impactful transitioning affected me in the past before like stopping hormones. But ultimately there was no other option for me, and I didn't want to end up doing something stupid, right? I needed to be true to myself. And so that's the most important thing. And the takeaway that a lot of people need to understand is we're just built a little different, and like accept us or don't, but like don't threaten us. Don't like judge us in certain ways that you think like you need to judge us. Don't push us a certain way, because I don't think it's fair that trans women need to feel so pressured into going from here to here quickly. I don't feel like you should pressure somebody that's only been on hormones for a year that identifies as a trans woman publicly and try to push them from here to here too quickly, because you don't want them to lead into surgeries that they may regret later. You don't want to lead somebody into making decisions that they may regret later. Like somebody might not have bottom dysphoria, but get the surgery just to get it out of the way, and then they may have some regrets about it. I don't see this regret rate nearly as much as like what media would like kind of portray on that. But at the same time, it's like I do see some people that say after a certain point, I do regret getting this surgery. There have been complications with the surgery. I looked good enough before the surgery. I wish I didn't get this lip lift because of the scar. Stuff like that, right? Little, tiny little things. But like when people get enough into their head and they feel like they need to make that change, I think sometimes they're unfairly pushing themselves to make that change based off of the opinions of others. And so I understand making a decision based off of your own survivability, your own safety, and within your comfort range. But I think it's important to not jump to making decisions that are life changing, something that you're going to have for the rest of your life based off of the opinions of other people, because that can be something that you regret, right? So I think that's going to be it for this one. I'm just going to keep it kind of brief, kind of a couple thoughts, right? I think it's better when I make videos where I'm just talking to you as a person rather than trying to read any sort of articles. I think I want to try to like get away from like talking about the news and like time sensitive topics in the future, so somebody can come back to this video 2 years from now and at least understand most of it. At least understand like the main takeaways of the video. I hope like this helps some people understand that like this is like what we go through. I hope some people understand the extra layers that trans women have to face currently. Um, and I hope things improve, but ultimately I don't see it getting better anytime soon. I am worried, like in the future, if more people become a little bit more radicalized, if more people become a little bit more against us kind of thing, because we've already dealt with ourselves. We've already dealt with trying to, in some cases, fighting ourselves to not transition because we thought, hey, this isn't going to be good for our lot. This might be a little difficult. This might be, the wrong choice. Ultimately giving into it, ultimately making that decision, ultimately making this, understanding that this was the best decision that we've ever made. And then have people go after us for that and have people judge us for that. And whenever you already have a rate that people try to take their own being so high, right? And then adding this extra layer on the things, that's what worries me. It's not necessarily that people even have to do it themselves. It's that by weaponizing the language against us, by making it appear that so many people are against us, by making us feel freakish as when you really flourish kind of situation. And I think it's important to just remember to be true to yourself. Remember to be decent. Remember that your mother gave birth to you in the hopes that like you were going to be a decent human being. And that goes with both ways. That goes with people that do transition, and that goes with people that judge trans people. And I will say it until the cows turn blue and come home that if you get with a partner that's transphobic, that treats trans people a certain way, that you see acting a certain way, you probably don't want to be in a relationship with that person, because they're not only going to treat you a certain way if you look or act a certain way, but if your kid transitions, if your kid acts anything other than. And that's the thing. We've been othered, and I hope things change. But for now, we just have to tough it out. Until the next video.